Chapter 1 of A Sailor's Lass. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Adele de Pigneroles. A Sailor's Lass by Emma Leslie. Chapter 1 One Stormy Night. Mother, we're afloat again. It was a gruff, sleepy voice that spoke, and the old fisherman turned over and snored on, as though the fact of their being home afloat was of no consequence to him. His wife, however, was by no means so easy in her mind, for it was only during the equinoctial gales and an unusually high tide that their home was lifted from its moorings, and now it had been swinging and swaying for hours, and the rusty chains that held it fast to some posts were creaking and straining as though the next gust of wind would certainly carry them out to the sea, or drive them up the river, where they would inevitably be swamped in a very short time, for their boat home was leaky at the bottom, had been a waterlogged boat before the fishermen took possession of it and turned it into a quaint-looking wooden cottage by running up some wooden walls along the sides, and roofing it in with planks and tarpaulin. Thus converted into a dwelling house, the boat had been secured, by 4 chains fixed to posts in the ground, on the top of a mud bank that formed the boundary of the mouth of the river. The ocean itself was less than a quarter of a mile from where the old boat was moored, and so the poor women might well be excused for growing more alarmed as the minutes went on and the gale increased, until the boat fairly rocked, and the children in the adjoining cabinet began crying and screaming in their fright. "Coomber! Coomber!" she said at last, shaking her husband, and starting up in bed, for a sound more dreadful than the children's screams had made itself heard above the din of the wind and waves. "There's a ship, Coomber, close in shore. I can hear the guns!" screamed his wife, giving him another vigorous shake. "Ship! Guns!" exclaimed the old fisherman, starting up in bed. The next minute he was on his feet, and working himself into his clothes. "She must be on the sandbar if you heard the guns," he said. A sudden lurch of the boat almost pitched the old man forward, and the children's screams redoubled, while Mrs. Coomber hastily scrambled out of bed and lighted the lantern that hung against the wall. "What are yer going to do?" asked her husband in some surprise. "Women ain't no good in such work as this." "What are you going to do?" asked Mrs. Coomber, almost crying herself. "The boat will soon be adrift with this wind and tide, and we shall all be drowned like rats in a hole." "Nay, nay, old woman, the boat was made taut enough before I brought you here, and you think she wouldn't have broken away before this if she was going to do it? Don't be a stupid lubber," he added. "But the children, Coomber, the children! I ain't afraid for myself," said the mother with a sob. "Well, well, the old boat'll hold the boys for many a day yet," said the fisherman. "You go in and stop their noise, while I get help for the poor souls that are surely perishing out there." "But what can you do for them?" asked his wife. "There ain't a boat besides ours at Bermuda Point, nor a man to help you manage it besides Bob." "No, no, Bob and I couldn't manage the boat in such a sea as this, but he shall go with me to Fellness. Bob! Bob!" called his father in the same breath. "Aye, aye!" came an answering shout from the adjoining cabinet. "Slip into your things as quick as you can. We must be off to Fellness. There's a ship out there on the bar sands." "I'm a'most ready, Dad. I heard mother call yer, and thought you'd let me go along," replied Bob. Before the fisherman put on his sou'wester he took a black bottle from a recess, and after taking a hearty draught, he said, "It's lucky we've got a drop tonight," as he handed it to his wife, and with a parting word to her not to be afraid, he and Bob stepped out of the boathouse door to meet the full fury of the blast, that threatened at first to carry them off with their legs. The 3 miles' walk to the little fishing village of Fellness was no easy task in such a wild night as this, for although the road was inland, it was fully exposed to the sea, and between the wilder outbreaks of the wind and rain they could hear the guns of distress, and occasionally see a rocket piercing the midnight blackness of the sky, appealing for help for the drowning men. At the Coast Guard station, midway between the point and the village, they found the men on the alert, and 2 volunteered to go with Coomber and help man the boat. Then the 4 plodded silently along the slushy road, for talking was next to impossible in such a gale, and
Sample complete. Ready to continue?